Hello, my friends, to another episode of Clone Wars Conversations. You can tune in on the podcast feeds of Comics in Motion, Star Wars, Comics in Canon, or on Genuine Chit-Chat. If you want to watch the video versions of this conversation, they are also on the podcast feed of Star Wars, Comics in Canon, but also on YouTube at youtube.com/genuine chit-chat. But I just want to say this is part of Clone Wars Christmas, where I'm essentially releasing an episode of Clone Wars every week in December to try and catch up, because we've still got about 4 episodes recorded, and we're recording another one tomorrow. So trying to catch those up for when we get into 2025, so all our plugs will make sense. So there's a brief update to say on top of that we've got Skeleton Crew. So that's coming out, and I'm doing a weekly discussion show with a different guest each week of Skeleton Crew. The first week, which was the premiere, episodes 1 and 2, was with Thomas Rochester, and then I've got next week lined up and a few others around the holiday period. Who knows who the guests will be, but I've got some fun guests, and they are again on YouTube, and they'll be on the feeds of Comics in Motion and Star Wars Comics in Canon every single week. On top of that, I've been on Back to the Filmography, as have Dave and Maff, who are my co-hosts in this show, so make sure you check out Back to the Filmography, link is in the description. I've also recently been on Spider Down and the Secret Boars. We did the top 5 small cast movies, so check out that in the description. And on top of that, Maff was on the 20th Century Geek podcast as well. So we've been doing a lot of bits and pieces, but as always, in the description there's going to be links to everything that myself, Dave and Maff are up to, as well as Star Wars related things. I recently had a conversation with Mike Chen, who wrote Star Wars Brotherhood. He's been on the podcast twice, so you can tune into those. The second conversation wasn't about Star Wars as much, but the first conversation was very Star Wars centric. And in the coming week, I've got another Star Wars person coming on the show, which is going to be very interesting, a lot of fun. Not going to say anything else about that until I've got the recording in the bag, but make sure you subscribe to Genuine Chit-Chat, Star Wars Comics in Canon, and Comics in Motion. All 3 of those places have some great content. On Genuine Chit-Chat, I interview a huge amount of different people. There's a few that are involved with Star Wars in some way, but the majority are not. There's a wide variety of topics over there about movies and filmmaking and authors and traveling the world and mental health and all kinds of different things, so tune into that. Comics in Motion is a community podcast where all kinds of different people contribute to different shows every week and every month. And then Star Wars Comics in Canon is just all of my Star Wars output. So that's about 3 years of Star Wars Comics in Canon where I tackled Star Wars comics, and then since then it's all episodes of Clone Wars Conversations and also all of my interviews with Star Wars related people on that feed as well. So please follow me on social media at Genuine Chit-Chat. Wherever you're listening to this, please make sure you rate, you review, you share, subscribe. You know, there's lots of content that will be coming out to where you're listening, which you may not expect, and subscribing only takes a moment, and it really, really helps the show out, as does reviewing and all that great stuff. And if you want even more content, please consider going to patreon.com/genuine chit-chat. For as little as £1 a month, you get immediate access to over 200 bonus episodes. But friends, thank you so much for tuning in as always, and I bring you Clone Wars Conversations, Season 5, Part 4, the finale of Ahsoka and the Temple Bombing Arc. And we are here for another Clone Wars Conversations. We are on Season 5, Part 4. Those episodes 17, 18, 19, and 20. It's a very, very big finale. Now, if you haven't tuned into the show before, hello, welcome there. Welcome there. Oh my god, hello there, welcome. How offensive for me, a Star Wars fan, getting that wrong. It's not my favourite quote. But we are here going through all the episodes of the Clone Wars. We're breaking them down, talking about certain things that we liked, didn't like about them, but we are not talking about future episodes, because Maff has never seen the Clone Wars. This is his first watch. He has to keep waiting to watch new episodes for us to record these, whereas Dave's watched once before, and I have watched them all 2 or 3 times before. We've seen all the Star Wars Rebels, but we've not touched any of the other animated series, not the Tales of, and not the Bad Batch, but we will get there eventually. But first, we need to talk about Season 5, Part 4. Now, normally, I do go to Dave first, but I actually want to go to Maff first because he was making a good point and I cut him off so we could record. So for a first time ever in Clone Wars Conversations, I'm going to go to Maff first. What was your overall feeling of these 4 episodes? And for make sure anyone listens on YouTube as well, because you can watch the video version of this and you can see the image that Maff has from behind him. And as a reminder, these are episodes: Sabotage, The Jedi Who Knew Too Much, To Catch a Jedi, and The Wrong Jedi. So Maff, very overview about this. What did you know anything about these episodes, about the hints, and what connected you to the Rebels screenshot?
This was just unbelievable. I can understand why it's so highly rated. It kind of throughout this journey, you kept saying questions are going to be answered. Questions are going to be answered, and this just kind of answered. So I mean, it answered Rebels. It answered Ahsoka. It would just. And to be fair, I suppose a little bit like Revenge of the Sith as well, in a way.
It does.
it just wraps up so much, and it is so beautifully done. And it kind of sends you through a loop as well. I mean, I have so many kind of questions of where we're going to go from here and what's going to happen and everything else. But it just, as I say, I watched these four. I watched these four this weekend. Now, I know after we recorded last time, Dave went and kind of watched them straight away. I'm glad I didn't do that because it would have killed me having to wait to be able to speak. I would have probably watched these. I mean, I've seen this, and then I went back and I rewatched this, the Rebels episode with Ahsoka and Vader, because I had to see that again. I had to kind of think, this is how it's all fitting. And certain lines when I think when Vader turns and calls and says, "I am not a Jedi," and now I understand why she's not a Jedi, and it made you feel so much in that moment. And as I say, throughout this, I have a big thing to talk about near the end, but I will wait till the end for that. The pacing is just so good. Again, we said in the previous one, that could have been a brilliant movie. This could have been a brilliant movie. This is kind of what if they kind of packaged this lot up and released this before Ahsoka came out, people may have actually even kind of gone into Ahsoka a bit, kind of, I really want to see this. But I would just, I want to kind of go into the next season, but at the same point, there's part of me that don't, because it's like, I'm worried where we're going to go next. And that, now Disney have spoiled it because Ahsoka's kind of on the poster. So I do know Ahsoka's going to appear at some point again.
Mm-hmm.
And that, because I think she's stood with two other characters that I don't know about. But
she does return at some point. I'll let you know that. And I will say that with the episode you referred to in Rebels, it's the season 2 finale, Twilight of the Apprentice. The two, in my opinion, the two greatest episodes, two best pieces of Star Wars content in existence. However, they are on par with other pieces of content. Before we delve into that, I'm going to ask Dave what he thinks, and we'll quickly do plugs, and then we'll really get into the depths of things. So, Dave, what did you remember about these episodes? On the rewatch, were you as hyped? Like, what do you think?
So, I think, again, my mind goes to these fucking episodes with George Lucas and the droids. Like, this is in the same season.
Yeah.
So I had the same feeling where I'm almost regretting binging it the first time. And I'm so glad we've kind of chunked up so that we're not just blasting through a whole season. We can actually pause and credit to you for actually looking ahead and figuring out how we best split them up. But when it started off, I'm like, I don't really remember this. And then when it starts to go against Ahsoka, I'm like, I thought this was later. I didn't realize it was as early as season 5 in my mind. It was 6 or 7. And in terms of being a movie, I think I'd watched all 4 by the time we all met the other week. And I was like, fucking hell, I want to talk about it. I'm desperate. I want to talk, but I can't. But just top tier Clone Wars. I mean, even the arc before this one, was great. And then you come into this one even better, and you're like, I know why season 5 is held up despite the lumpy start, that we talked about. But yeah, I just absolutely love these episodes, even though they properly pull on your heartstrings as well.
There is brutality to it. But before we delve in, we'll loosely go chronologically, but let's get our plugs out of the way. I want to get your thoughts first to tease the listeners a little bit. But I will say that I've got Disney, find me on social media at Genuine Chit-Chat. I've got Disney discussions in my back pocket that I'll be releasing soon. I've just released the final episode of Me and Megan in America. So 5 episodes of that, huge amount of me and Megan talking about a trip. We're back to form. There's going to be more interview style podcasts, and there's a fun one coming up that these two know about, but no one anyone else does. So, I've got a book that I'm reading for it for next week. So very excited about that. And then also there's banned book conversations, but I think by the time this comes out, it's going to be closer to the next one, to be honest. But that's loose plugs and things. I know I'm going to, towards the end of this year, especially around Christmas, be like, Merry Christmas, everyone. Here's a few more episodes, clumped together, just so we can kind of be a little bit closer, because our plugs are so redundant now because they're so far out the way.
Yeah,
so that's
because by the time this comes out, you'll have been to America again.
Yeah.
But both of you, so I'll go with you first, Maff. Just any plugs, anything that you're up to at the moment that you can talk about?
Again, it depends when this comes out. I know I've done something with Jax, which...
Back to the filmography, I assume.
I think that when we're recording, that should come out in a couple of weeks from now.
I've recorded one. I've got one in 2 weeks, actually. I'm due. Yeah, I should have said that.
So that's probably like 3 months ago. But, I mean, the thing is, Mike will put it in the descriptions anyway, if we've done anything in between. So that's probably the best way, just check the descriptions. And
I'll do my best. If you pop up on Spider Down, or if the Back to Filmography is out or anything. I think Dave's Back to Filmography is out, like, as of recording this right now.
Literally came out today, yeah. So we did My Boyfriend's Back, and Matthew McConaughey was guy number 2 in it, and was on the screen for solid 10 seconds, I reckon, in the whole movie. And it was a real shocker. So it was a case of, we watched that one, so you don't have to. So it was a really entertaining chat. We somehow managed to talk for like an hour and a half or something, despite McConaughey's 20-second or 10 or 20-second appearance. So that was good. Back to the filmography. VHS Strikes Back this week. We've got Labyrinth coming out. So middle-aged rock star pines after 15-year-old schoolgirl.
I've heard it, and yeah,
with a lot of puppets as well.
Yeah. It's weird how you don't pick up on these things when you're younger and you're watching them. But creepy old Bowie there, and yeah, we're going through maths. So not math, but maths at the minute. So Married at First Sight on the reality cast as well.
Amazing. And I'll say to anyone watching the video, you'll be able to see it in the background. There's the book Comics Lit, which is by numerous members of the Comics in Motion family. So I think it was heralded by, or edited by A.R. Farina, Tony Farina, and Tonya Todd, who are friends of Genuine Chit-Chat, parts of the Comics in Motion family. And then there's also essays in there from Alison Shelton, Eric Lee, Kelly Gaines, Seth Singleton, A.A. McCartney, Heath Fodor, and Anthony D. Holt Jr. with foreword by Brian Edward Hill. And I think all of them, bar maybe one, has appeared on the Comics in Motion feed at some point or in some sort of connected podcast. So it's all about comics. It's an essay about comics, or essays about comics. So check that out. I've yet to read it, but I will be doing a podcast with them at some point in the future. So I imagine I'll have probably spoken about that before this actually airs. So people can check that out. But let's delve in, because I've teased enough. We've done some plugs. We want to get into talking about Star Wars. So the first episode is Sabotage. So it starts on Caton Nemoidia. You've got some Jedi starfighters, which actually you see them in Revenge of the Sith. That is the yellow and the red ones. They are called Eta 2 Actis class Light Interceptors. And this is the first time you see them on screen. They're in like 1 or 2 short stories before this, but this was really their chronological debut, because they actually replaced the Delta 7 Aether Sprite class, which is the triangular Jedi starfighters that you would know from like the Jedi Starfighter games on the sort of previous consoles and whatnot. So that's fun. There's like a connection there to sort of Revenge of the Sith, lightly touching as we're getting closer and closer to Revenge of the Sith. So as we finish season 5, I believe that is only about a year and a half to the end of the Clone Wars, nearer like a year and a half to a year. So I think season 6 is like that kind of 6 and 7 of that final year or so. And I won't go too much further into the timeline there, because there's more to come. But what's really interesting about this is when you've still got Anakin and Ahsoka, they're in their stride, they're at kind of height of their power. There's the buzz droids thing, and Ahsoka actually saves Anakin, so the roles are kind of changing in a way. She's kind of maturing, showing at the start of this episode how she doesn't necessarily need him anymore, and it's actually really the other way around, that he needs her. And that is a really major theme in these 4 episodes. And it's, as Maff sort of you said in your kind of overall description, and I think before we pressed record, this is the most important anchor point story for Ahsoka in her whole timeline, I'd say it's really this. It's the Rebels, the Rebels one, Twilight of the Apprentice, which obviously Maff you referenced earlier, and then you've got obviously things in Ahsoka, but these two are the major ones. Now, as Maff does know this, Ahsoka does return, and when we get there, we'll get there and we'll talk about it, but this is integral to Ahsoka. So I'm going to pass it back on to Dave then. So this first episode where also Anakin talks about like Jedi turning to the dark side, and there's this whole kind of thing about it. What did you think of this first episode? Did it kick on in for you? How did you find Anakin? Anything you want to mention about it?
There seem to be a number of different archetypes of Clone Wars episodes. So we've had a few of these murder mystery type things before, haven't we? And I don't know why it just really hit me this time. It's like, oh, this is the murder mystery archetype, and you know, it almost felt like the Attack of the Clones as well at the start, didn't it? You know, you don't want the death sticks. So yeah, I actually quite enjoyed it, but you could tell the tone of it straight away. It's all darker, and you know, we've said before, you have I mean, we didn't have any droids or Jar Jar Binks or anything, but the contrast when you have, you know, the droids and the whole, whoa, let's throw these clones out to suffocate in space. Hey, you know, it's just really weird. Whereas you didn't have that contrast here. You just had, it was all very dark. I mean, it was almost Blade Runner dark. Straight off the bat, and obviously you get a lot of the clones killed, and it's very early on. It's sort of turning against Ahsoka. You feel like she's the finger of blame's wagging in her direction straight from the off, and you just feel like we've followed this character since literally the Clone Wars movie. And she's always been the point of view character, and she's always, to an annoying level, she's always had the kind of upper hand as well. So even though Anakin is her mentor, she's like, oh no, you know, you have to see things my way. And with this one, it's the first time when it really starts to turn against her. And so obviously we'll speak about where it goes and everything. But even in this first episode, I thought that was fairly obvious what was coming.
Yeah, because it's all about it does kind of lean that way, as you say, and then it comes back. And this episode does quite a lot of bait and switching, but kind of steadily, and it makes it feel like you've got a nice twisting storyline. But obviously, whenever I describe these episodes to people who haven't seen them, I don't go, there's a really big twist. That was the thing with you, Maff, and I know we'll get to the cause of the bombing, but like there were times when we were talking about certain characters, and I was like, I can't over mention when like a character gets mentioned, I can't go, oh yeah, look out for them, or any. It's like if the brilliance of these is it's so unassuming, and when it happens, you're like, oh, and it makes sense, but it doesn't. You know, it hasn't got the whole oh, it's a big twist in that way. It's very cleverly done. But Maff, what do you think about this first episode? As we get into the first and second episodes, kind of forming this mystery and things not quite going wrong. Right.
I think previous Ahsoka was in the one with the young Jedis when she kind of mentored them. I think seeing her in this as again, it's like that scene in Superman where Clark turns into Superman and he just kind of does that stand-up thing. Ahsoka seems to have a presence about her. She seems bigger on screen throughout these 4 episodes. She has a presence there. Because they were partly thinking, she's the Padawan, so why are you... this has been a major incident. Why are you sending the Padawan to go investigate this? Why are you not sending, you know, get Mace Windu to get off his ass and actually do something about it? You know, there's other Jedis they could send, and they've entrusted it to a Padawan, and it's like, why has that happened? Well, now, the thing is, as we get to the end of it, like, we'll talk about the Emperor, but he doesn't have anything to do with really this. So why there must be someone on the council that's kind of put her forward to do this, and it seems a lot of responsibility. Which, with the outcome, you kind of think she shouldn't have had that. I mean, I can understand why they give it because she started to grow into herself, but still, I feel Anakin should have been with him all the way through, and it seemed to flip. I mean, I think even if there'd have been someone with her, the person who set all this up is several steps ahead, and the outcome, whatever happens, he was going to win with it. But I just feel that it was a lot of responsibility to give her as she's still kind of learning. But at the same point, she does seem more capable of doing things than what Anakin is. And I think that's a bit where, could you say now the apprentice is now becoming the master? She seems a bit more kind of level-headed and kind of, maybe that was the issue. Someone saw that could become a problem because maybe she would then overtake Anakin and he would start following her to a certain degree. At the moment, he's the teacher.
It's an interesting point. I would say, though, that as Padawans get older, they are given more responsibilities. Attack of the Clones, Anakin is sent away by himself, he's 19, with a senator who's had numerous assassination attempts, and his whole job is just to protect her, and obviously goes terribly. And so and there are in a lot of the books, especially some of the High Republic comics, where it is meant to be when you're a teenager, it's like going to the store for your parents. And you just pop by there when you're young. And then you get older and older. And then when you're like, maybe, I don't know, 13, 14, 15, you're like, oh, I want to go to town with my friends by myself. Okay, I'll trust you to go into town for a few hours, whatever. And I know that I agree with you. There are points and you're like, this is a bit much, especially like this is probably the most important investigation, arguably, that the Jedi have had in such a long time. Why are you giving it to her?
You see, that's the thing.
Yeah.
If it had been like a senator building or I don't know, something like
another
that.
Another planet even, not the centre. That's like London.
I could see that happening, but it's the Jedi Temple.
Yeah.
It's the sacred thing. I'm sorry, but you would be sending your best people to go investigate it.
Mm-hmm.
Not
an up-and-comer.
No, exactly. It doesn't make sense. That's the only issue there. And I just question why did they choose Ahsoka? There's something going on behind the scenes that we haven't seen that has made them come to this decision.
I wouldn't be surprised if like Palpatine was kind of moving chess pieces, like, oh, let's say Dooku was seen over here. Well, we have to send one of our best, so let's send Obi-Wan. Oh, well, Grievous was seen over here. Okay, well, let's send another one of our best over there. And because he was doing that the whole war. And it is interesting because we'll talk about Palpatine a bit because I have a bit to say about him towards the end. But I want to mention there's something here which I want to delve into, and I want to hear especially Dave's opinion on this, is as we will bleed into the second and third episodes, because I know we'll hold the fourth episode because that's where all the juicy stuff is. But I want to ask about the public opinion of the Jedi. Now, Mace mentions it here, and it gets mentioned a tiny amount in other bits of the Clone Wars, but here's the really point it really shows you in the face, where he says, the public opinion of the Jedi are faltering. People are starting to blame the Jedi for the war, which obviously is Palpatine's basically the basis of his whole plan, is you can't exterminate an entire religious sect. You can't commit genocide without first scapegoating them and blaming them for everything. Sound like Nazi Germany. So Dave, I wondered, did you pick up on that kind of stuff, and how did you find that in these episodes?
Yeah, I thought it was clever in terms of, again, it's a kids show, isn't it? But
yeah.
This sort of shit does happen in war, doesn't it? You can get a tremendous amount of public opinion if you can whip people up into a bit of a frenzy and create this demonized enemy, as you say about Nazi Germany, but, the Allies were full of propaganda as well in terms of, just these are devilish sort of German people. We need to go and let's not even talk about some of the Japanese stuff. So, I do think it was quite clever. It was just a little bit of dialogue thrown in there. Kids watching it probably wouldn't even notice it, but it is there for the story. And I think what Maff said is right. I think there's just a bit of Palpatine dialogue that would have helped just square the circle in this. Because, like you say, whether he's sent other people off or the Jedi are really stretched thin for resources. So this is a home murder mystery thing. So, you just take care of that, Ahsoka. definitely, you've got more responsibility now. You'll be a Jedi soon, and so I think you can take this one. But yeah, I think I am missing some Palpatine stuff in there. I can go with it. Obviously the public sentiment is turning, and you say about Nazi Germany, but I mean the First World War. It was really the public sentiment in Germany. People were just sick of the war, and they started to not force the hand, but they started to the dissent and whatever started to put pressure on the politicians, and then the politicians ended up, sort of pulling out and whatever. So yeah, definitely interesting. Definitely happens in war, and I would have more sympathy that this master stroke, Palpatine is this genius. But again, he doesn't have to be, does he? Because the Jedi are so fucking shit. Like, all across this whole arc, they're rubbish. And they are so quick as well to just throw Ahsoka under the bus. And they don't even try. They've known Ahsoka for years now. And it's like, oh, well, it does seem like she's a bit shit. And like you say, maybe if everyone had been sent off, but they're not. They're just sat around fucking a Jedi Council.
Yeah, I was too busy to do this, but as soon as Ahsoka gets the blame, they're all there.
And I'm not joking, right? And sort of, I'll just say this tiny bit on the last episode, but fucking Mace Windu is such a dick.
Yes,
right?
he is.
And he said... At the end, before Ahsoka does what she does...
I've got it all written down. I'm going to read it.
He's like, oh, yeah, this is the way of the Force. This is how it was meant to be, wasn't it? Fuck you incompetent prick. You should have fucking give Ahsoka a bit of credit before.
Well, I've got here as well, I've literally written it right there. Mace is a dick.
Yeah.
There it is. Trial was a test. Mace a dick. We'll jump forward a smidge. We'll give it to Maff. So, Maff, go tell us what you want to say.
The thing is, thinking there is actually a bit of Palpatine there, because it's like when we kind of get to the second episode 18, as they're kind of obviously honouring all the dead, you see lots of faces there, and you see Tarkin. Now, Tarkin's obviously the one who's been sent by the Empire, so there, I think, is where your influence is.
Yeah.
But also, we'd met, is it Barriss Offee?
Yeah.
And that. So, again, now at this point, we're not aware that she's been corrupted and that. But, again, she seems a little bit off as well. So, obviously, Palpatine's got to her and is sending in Tarkin as well. So, there is... The problem is, if Palpatine had come in and said, right, you send Ahsoka to do this, he then gets kind of mixed in there. Whereas if he does it all in the back, there's no one pointing fingers, well, you told us to do this. It's like the bit where is it Letter? She gets force choked. Obviously, Ahsoka doesn't do it. You don't see who does that and that. So again, is that Barriss hiding somewhere so she can see to do it? But the thing is...
It is Barriss. I'll spoil it.
Barriss?
So Dave doesn't know this, but there is content at some point on the horizon where we get more from Barriss. That's all I'll say. And that will address... I won't spoil... It doesn't spoil what happens in those episodes, but her whole acting had nothing directly to do with Palpatine. There is something in a future episode where you find out where it's kind of like you were not under the influence of Palpatine.
Because I kind of thought, I would assume someone like Barriss' power, she would have to be kind of in the vicinity to be able to see it, to be able to force show Letter. Whereas Palpatine could probably sit back on another planet and just go and click his fingers and do it.
I think if she was meditating, I might be wrong here, but I feel like there's a couple of books. There's a book of short stories, Clone Wars short stories, Stories of Light and Dark, I think it's called. I haven't read it personally because what it does is it's like 15 stories, each with one character. There's an Obi-Wan story, there's a Asajj Ventress story, and they kind of focus on their main arcs. So Obi-Wan's arc is the Satine stuff, Asajj's is the Dooku Savage Opress stuff, and you get like their inner kind of position on these things. And I believe, I might be fabricating this, but I'm fairly certain there's one on Barriss. And I think she was like meditating somewhere else, like fully focusing on that. So like Palpatine definitely has an impact because the whole war is he's orchestrating the whole thing. But the funny thing is about this is that it is an individual independent from Palpatine, but it's undeniable that you've said, Maff, is that Tarkin is such a major part is in all of us. Tarkin is the Republic / Empire. You know, he's kind of the future coming through, and he's almost reorganizing and taking note, and this doesn't work that way, and this doesn't. Anakin, he's clever with these tactics, but the Jedi as a whole don't work. Here's all the reasons they don't. And so he's splitting reasons why the Jedi are fallible, and he's doing it, and he did it a bit in the Citadel arc as well. And I think what's rare about Star Wars, especially with Clone Wars, is they use Tarkin, but actually sparingly, which is quite rare, because a lot of time you get a character who people like a lot, and then he's in everything. So I quite like that in the Clone Wars, Tarkin is used sparingly, and in this it's great.
I think the thing with Tarkin, a bit like Thrawn, to be fair, it's like, I mean, you see in Star Wars with Tarkin's the only one who kind of stands up to Vader, and he's not scared of him, and he's 100%. Just a normal person. You could argue with Thrawn, there's a bit more to Thrawn and that, but with Tarkin, he's so intelligent, and that's his superpower. Kind 100%. Of thing. That and because there's the Vader comics where Vader gets Tarkin to hunt him down.
It's a great one-off, isn't it? It's a great comic.
A brilliant comic, and how close it is at the end. I mean, I won't, obviously neither of them die because we see them in the films, but kind of how it ends is really clever, and the fact is it's kind of wit against brawn. And that, and it just shows, it's like the pennies might and the sword kind of thing. Tarkin is so clever, and again, to a certain degree, like Palpatine, he's thinking several steps ahead, and that's what makes him very dangerous.
No, I agree completely. And so with the second episode, I was going to say as well, what I noticed actually is in the first episode when Anakin is talking to Letta in the cell, you actually see Barriss walk past. She has no dialogue. She doesn't linger. She just walks past and looks in and goes. And I watch these episodes of Megan, and obviously this is one of Megan's favourites because Ahsoka's one of her favourite characters. And when Megan watched this, from episode 2, she said something's not right with Barriss. She was like, I blame Barriss. And I was like, I play poker face, and she's mad at me. Like, we'll get her on like the full wrap up of all the Clone Wars episodes, because when we finish Clone Wars, we'll do one wrap up and talk about favourite episodes. She said she'll come on that. And when we do that, we'll talk about this a bit, because she was like, kept saying, I'm sorry. And I was like, I'm not. And at one point she was like, tell me honestly, is it? And I was like, no, it's not. And she's like, who is it then? Because she just wouldn't let it go. And then when it happened, she was so mad at me. But Barriss does appear in that first episode. And then, she's in it a bit more, but you get to see more of Barriss and Ahsoka's friendship. And as a reminder, Barriss, you do see her in Attack of the Clones. She has no words in it or anything. And she's a Miriellen. I always pronounce that wrong. She's the Padawan of Luminar and Dooley, who's also a Miriellen. And actually, in some deleted scenes, she actually died in Order 66. And in Legends, she had like a completely different story in a way. But I quite like where she goes with this. And so I want to ask with them.
Can I just trim back? Go ahead. Because that bit when you said like Barriss walks past, I wonder then, because when Ahsoka goes to see Letta, she says, "Why did you ask for me?" She says, "I was told you're the person I need to ask for." So again, there's something there that we've not seen that's been set up.
I think it's Barriss almost perfectly framing Ahsoka in so many ways. But what did you both think of Barriss? Because whenever I think of Barriss, I think of these episodes, but she is actually in quite a few other episodes. I think it's like 6 or 8 other episodes, a lot of the time with Ahsoka. So I'll go with you as well, Maff. Did you notice anything about Barriss? Did you?
I think watching it and kind of going over it again, but in previous episodes, Ahsoka's always been the confident, the one who runs it. She kind of takes charge, and she's just always kind of it's like the one where they win the tank and she will just give it up, and it's like, oh, we can't do anything. And that, I think she's jealous, and I think that's probably the driving point of why she's probably flipped and gone to the other side, because she's got that jealousy, she's got that hatred leads to the dark side, doesn't it? So I think that's where it is, and all you have to do is play on that a little bit more. It's like, yeah, but she always had the upper hand of you. She always did this. You just play on that and get her so that she's like, right, I'm going to show her. I'm going to frame her. Maybe she didn't expect it to go as far as what it did. I don't know. But again, it's just all you have to do is it's that little push, send her in the right direction, and then you can frame herself. Because, again, going back to what I said, Ahsoka means so much to Anakin. You take Ahsoka away, you take that humanity away from Anakin. He's a loose cannon. I really question where we're going to go the next 2 seasons, because without having that person who's kind of grounded him, and that, I mean, you could argue and say Padme, but watching these, I think Ahsoka is his grounding rod. Whereas, yes, he loves Padme, but I think Ahsoka's the one who keeps him grounded and keeps him question himself to think, am I doing the right thing? And at the same point, if my actions are shows Ahsoka, so I've got to make sure I do right. I think he loves her like a big brother. That's what it is.
Yeah,
so he has to do right.
100%. So, Dave, you and Barriss, did you remember much about Barriss when we were watching earlier episodes? I didn't want to give you too many hints. Did you have any thoughts on Barriss?
I didn't remember this, and as I was going through, I was like, it can't be her, can it? Because she just doesn't seem powerful enough. And especially, when the person is getting strangled in the cell, you're like, oh, this guy, because no one could sense that he was there, especially Ahsoka. So I'm like, that's got to be some Palpatine level shit that is. And yeah, she just didn't really seem strong enough. However, like what you say about her previous appearances where, because Anakin and Ahsoka are both, I don't want to go as far as to say morally flexible, but, they do what needs to be done, whereas she's by the book, and I'm believing everything. And so I think sometimes people like that are a bit more dangerous because they just swallow whatever they're given. They don't really think. They just follow the rules. And then when something comes along where it's like, hang about, the rules don't seem right here, they don't know how to handle it. They don't know how to improvise and work from there. So I think her as a choice to turn is a good one. Again, I'd have just liked a bit more obvious Palpatine. Like you say, Tarkin was definitely working under his instruction when he was saying, oh, no, it shouldn't be the Jedi Council who try her. She should be expelled from the Jedi Council. 100% a Palpatine move. And what you're saying there, Maff, definitely taking Ahsoka away from Anakin, seems like a deliberate thing. But for something like Clone Wars, where, again, it flip-flops between these very deep, dark themes, and then droids and what have you. It just seems odd to not have something a little bit more obvious on screen, rather than us guessing. It's like, oh yeah, off screen, off panel, Palpatine definitely did this thing.
I think one of the reasons for it, and this is me. This isn't. I don't think I've heard this from anyone. This is my reading of this. Is what I believe it to show is that although Palpatine was the cause of the Jedi falling, I think these episodes are really showing that the Jedi were not blameless. The Jedi really, Palpatine gave them the shovel, but they dug their own grave. Like, they were peacekeepers. They should never have got involved in a war. They found the Jedi, the clone army, and they just let it all go. They get embroiled in all these wars over who caused it essentially is Dooku, a fallen Jedi. So you've really got all of these, and when you delve into why Dooku left, and it's the audio drama Dooku Jedi Lost, which is really good. It's like an Asajj Ventress point of view story, and she's like finding out about Dooku's past. Really, really cool. And it is written, there's one event that specifically happens, and he argues with Yoda, and he blames Yoda. He says the reason the Jedi Order have fallen is because of Yoda, because he's been there for so long that when things piece by piece are breaking away, he doesn't notice because it's so gradual. And he's the anchor point of the Jedi Order. So anytime someone goes, this isn't right, he goes, no, it's the same as it's always been. And you go, well, actually, that picture has fallen down several centimeters every 100 years, but you've never noticed it because you've been here for 900. So you're not noticing the gradual change. And I think in these episodes, it really shows that it's not for once, it's not actually Palpatine. Palpatine pushes the needle. When this situation presents itself to Palpatine, he does what he can. But the actual cause of all this actually isn't Palpatine, and that's probably the scariest part, is that it's actually the Jedi's failings, and one of them that's considered a very Obi-Wan style character, very, following the rules. And I think them falling is actually a lot more harder to swallow in a way than, say, Pong Krell or Dooku or something like that, because it's like, this person is so unassuming, just a friend of Ahsoka's, and is trying to help Ahsoka the whole way, and then falls to that degree where she bombs civilians, trying to frame her best friend, all in an attempt to show the Jedi Order really how corrupt and nonsensical they are in a really deluded way. And so for me personally, I actually quite like it not always being Palpatine, because I think it's almost like we can't just only blame Palpatine, a bit of Mace and Anakin. We really have to look at the whole picture. And Yoda is very much, and even Obi-Wan is complicit in this, but Yoda especially towards the end. But I do want to jump to the trial, because that's the big thing. But before we get there, I just want to point out in the third episode, there's quite a lot of action scenes I quite liked. So there's one bit where one of my favourite bits, and probably some of the best animation I've seen, which is actually in the second episode, but there's also a lot in the third episode, is when Ahsoka's running away from all those clones and they're all firing on her, and she's like jumping and spinning and doing all these things and deflections. There's other Jedi who had to do that during a certain order, and I think that was deliberate. I think seeing the Order 66 thing when it's not Order 66 is a clever amount of foreshadowing. So before we get into the big stuff in this, I just want to give it back to each of you. Dave, did you notice any of the action, even with Ventress and Barriss and the lightsaber scenes and the long chase scene? Anything really stood out to you in that front?
I mean, the action was brilliant, and Ventress as well. I thought it made me warm to her more. I mean, we'd seen her, was it earlier in this season or the previous season? It gave her a bit more screen time, and you started to understand her a bit more. And I like the way the back and forth with her and Ahsoka, and the way they both have their view, but they're able to negotiate and find this middle ground. I really did like that. Well, I was going to ask you mentioned about Bayliss being in Attack of the Clones. So, canon-wise, what is it supposed to be? Because obviously if she's in prison or whatever...
Attack of the Clones being before Clone Wars.
Of course. Yeah.
That's when we first see
I'm thinking I've got Revenge of the Sith in my head.
She's in a Revenge of the Sith deleted scene, which obviously was years before this came out. Yeah, but that's non-canon. Yeah. So they they changed.
Sorry, I was thinking Revenge of the Sith. I was thinking the third one there. Great action. Honestly, the all 4 episodes just on the edge of my seat, just sort of wondering where it's going to go. Even though, like I say, I'd started to remember a bit. And with Bayliss, I thought I remembered there was a twist. It wasn't as obvious as Palpatine. But yeah, no, just great episodes all the way through.
And what do you think, Maff, about Ventress as well with this? Because you've got Barriss Offee versus Ventress, but she just clocks her on the head with a pipe. But then you've got Ahsoka versus Barriss, and then you've got Barriss versus Anakin towards the end. So you've got quite a lot of Barriss action. Did you like the action scenes? Did they stand out for you?
Again, I feel that if it's not Palpatine, Barriss is a lot smarter than because I feel Ventress was put in the right place at the right time. Because she's kind of set it up so that Ahsoka gets found with the nano bots, whatever they had, the bomb, basically.
MacGuffin.
Yeah, because obviously, going back to the person, apparently someone got fed nanobots and then exploded. But I feel Ventress had to be there to be able to kind of do what she did, so that Barriss could then take Ventress is kind of disguise to then kind of set Ahsoka up again. But it shows she's very capable. She's obviously been training hard with maybe a new master. I don't know. It's a questionable what's going on, but it shows she's very capable of what she's, it's like when you see Anakin, when he taps into that dark side a little bit, we see in Rebels, when Ezra taps into the dark side, they are a bit more capable of doing certain things. So I think maybe because she's now allowing herself to have more, both light and dark, and tap into the dark a bit more. She's become more of a formidable foe,
Mm.
she's quite badass and that.
Yeah, and I'll say, because we'll finish off about Ventress here, but Ventress does not pop up again. There's a book, which I should have got out. Here it is. It's called Dark Disciple. I would highly recommend it to all the listeners, especially the audiobook, because the audiobook just adds another flair to it. So this is sort of, in a respect, see, it says right at the bottom there, based on unproduced episodes of Star Wars: The Clone Wars. So if you want to find out the rest of what happens to Ventress, there's this. There is something else in the ethereal future, in the long future, that we will eventually get to. But I would say, I know the other homework is the Son of Dathomir comics. We'll do a whole episode on that, because that is essential Clone Wars, because the final season won't make any sense if you haven't read Son of Dathomir. Unfortunately, there's like a big plot hole that happens that's explained in the comics. This basically concludes Ventress' story in the confines of the Clone Wars, explains what happens to her and after, and that character on the front is Quinlan Vos. It's a great story, really, really cool. He's a major Legends character. He is in the Clone Wars episode where Obi-Wan's tracking someone, and this guy's got psychometry where he can touch objects and then sense their past and stuff. He's an amazing character, especially in this book. And this book, the premise is the Jedi Council are so desperate after, I think it's after all this happens, so it's after Ahsoka's gone and things like that. They're so desperate to win the war, they organize an assassination attempt to Dooku, who's a political leader. The Jedi secretly orchestrate an assassination attempt on Dooku. That's what this book is about, and it is brutal. There's a lot of dark side stuff in there.
The good guys remember.
Allegedly, yeah. And that gets brought up in the book. And Obi-Wan's quite a fair character in this as well. He's like the character that's from the Jedi Council sort of perspective. You've got Quinlan Vos, who's like a bit renegade, and then Ventress gets embroiled in it. It's a fantastic book. I'd say of Clone Wars books, it's a must-read. So I really recommend that, especially if you go to Audible and you just get a free trial on Audible, you just get it. You get a credit and you could just get this. And I would recommend it. Really, really good listen. Fantastic. So unfortunately, that's the end of Ventress for us. Which I really like Ventress. The book does help, but I find that these sorts of episodes, as you kind of said, Dave, really helps you connect with her more. She's got a lot to her, Ventress, I really like. But we'll get onto the big stuff. So the third and fourth episode, the third episode is the whole Ventress Barriss kind of stuff, which is quite cool. But the big stuff we want to talk about is the wrong Jedi. So this is Ahsoka's been caught, and it's her trial. Now, we saw earlier on that we did see the Jedi funeral. We touched on a little bit. And I wrote the question like, why is Tarkin at the Jedi funeral? Which is quite weird to me because it's meant to be a sacred thing. But I don't know, maybe, Palps MacGuffined him in because they have to check to make sure. But this episode, so this is one of the highest rated episodes of all Star Wars ever. And the last episode was as well. But this episode is cream of the crop. This is like Andor level for me. This is the writing of it, the direction, the animation, the voice acting, all of it is all around the trial. So I won't necessarily go in chronological order, but I do want to mention two things that are there, which is the Jedi Temple Guards are at the trial. So this is the debut of the Jedi Temple Guards. They're not in Legends either. And so you see them with their yellow lightsabers, and they have a big connection to Rebels because the Grand Inquisitor was a Jedi Temple Guard, and it's been since confirmed that he was there. He was one of the four guards that brought Ahsoka into the trial. The Grand Inquisitor under the mask was there. That was when I think Palpatine first kind of came aware of him in a sense because, the Jedi wouldn't let him check certain records. And then when Palps kind of took power, he then usurped a lot of the Jedi. And then Palps said, look, you could just go to the archives, get whatever. Obviously, in the 2017 Vader comics as well. But obviously, he's a main thing in Rebels. You get the Canon flashbacks with the Jedi Temple Guard. This is where they started. And then other people also at the trial. You saw Mon Mothma, Bail Organa, Rio Chuchi. She's the young Pantoran who befriends Ahsoka in the earlier things. She comes back in some future animated stuff. And then there's a few other senators. So what do we want to say about the trial? I'll give it to you, Dave. What did you want to say about this trial? And we'll just spring load off there.
I think I said it before where the Jedi are just bell ends, aren't they? I mean, just absolute useless. They've made their mind up before. Yoda says, get a fair trial, she will. Fuck off. It was rubbish. I just think again, could I forgive it and say, that it was intentionally played that way? I'm not sure. It seemed to be almost too far the other way. They weren't just incompetent; they were written to be a bit more incompetent than normal. It's like if you watch some of the '80s movies or something like that, and you have, I don't know, Martin Riggs and what's Danny Glover's character, Murtaugh. And they are fucking ace. But if you're a uniformed cop, you're rubbish.
Or in any Batman films, all the cops are terrible.
Yeah, absolutely rubbish, aren't they? And they just can't do anything. So I think they were written to be particularly bad in this way. But what I liked, if I could suspend that for the moment, I did like how this net was just closing around Ahsoka, and she just basically had no sort of way out, really. She was perfectly innocent. Yes, she'd run away because she could see the way it was going, and so yeah, they can't blame her for that.
There's that great scene where it just reminds me, because you covered this not so long ago, The Fugitive, that bit where they kind of stood by the pipes, and it's like, you just kind of thought a bit of, Anakin to turn around and say, "I don't care," kind of thing. It's
I didn't kill my wife.
Yeah, but that's the thing. It kind of mirrors that an awful lot, to be fair. And the whole trial is a bit of a farce. It's a big lead up, but really, she would have been convicted. And
like the words were about to come out. I must edit a thing quick, which is, I forgot to mention, there are technically the two trials. There's the crap trial that Dave mentioned, which is the Jedi trial to expel her out the Order, which was just instant. And she was like, and Anakin was kind of there, and he was like, "You've already made up your mind. It's just a formality." And you see Obi-Wan's face like, fuck. And then you get the main trial, which we're talking about, which is, while all this going on, Anakin's off in the field, interrogating people, doing everything. Yeah. And let's not forget, the only reason he even gets Barriss is because he does something very unconventional. He goes against, obviously, what the Jedi wanted. He then goes and tracks her and stuff. He goes into her room, or the room she's in, and then his gamble is to swipe at her with a lightsaber, and her instincts will be to just grab, if there is a lightsaber in this room, just to grab it to defend herself. And that gamble, if he'd have failed, he could have killed her. And no Jedi would have tried that, because it's insane. It's like thinking, I'm hunting Superman, so I'm just going to put a gun to everyone and just shoot everyone until the bullet crushes on the skull, and then I'll know it's him. It's like, it worked. And again, it's a further showing that the Jedi are quick to condemn, but they're not actually using any of their mind powers. Or, all these things they could easily do. Maybe
wisdom.
Yeah, exactly. And all this stuff they don't have. And you've got Anakin again. This is a further nail in the coffin, is that Anakin's the one to save Ahsoka's life from being falsely imprisoned. And he does that by tapping into the dark side, almost killing Barriss. And the only reason he doesn't is because he has to keep her alive. And it's, again, the Jedi are as almost as to blame, if not as much as Palpatine. And the whole thing here.
Even getting up to Barriss, though, I love the fact that, Anakin has just had enough. So it's getting to Ventress and basically force choking her to get Barriss's name. It's like, I should hate it, Space Hitler, but I do. I like seeing him just absolute badass, single vision. And again, it plays into what happens later on as well. So it was good leading up to that.
When he kind of, we watch his torture, questions Ventress, it's like, oh, actually, there was someone else there. And the thing is, it's a clever plan, because at no point anyone's really kind of thought about this. So it's not until the point where literally a kind of life's been choked out of her, she remembers there is another, and then it's kind of led him on to the thing, and then he goes to go get Barriss. But again, Anakin is very quick to kind of believe this ex-Sith of, all right, we'll follow that path. But obviously, I think he's at an end there. He has to do something, and the Jedi are going to do fuck all.
When he knows that she did the last time Ventress was really involved was when she basically saved Obi-Wan from Maul and Savage. So she's kind of like, they know she's there, but they're like, you're not a war criminal anymore. You're just kind of operating in the darkness, but to yourself. We don't actually care enough to bother with you. And I think that's where it kind of goes with Ventress, and she's just kind of left to the wayside. She's just disposed of.
I wonder kind of her power levels, because she's Sith, but she's also a witch, isn't she? So it's like a.
I don't think she utilizes the witch stuff very much. It's kind of like a inner blood, but she doesn't really use in that book. She does go back to Dathomir, and it's quite interesting there. But she's not like an out and out witch shooting. Right. It's kind of, she can partake in rituals. She has a knowledge of the Dathomir riches, but she does definitely, to agree with your point.
Is she strong. More comic?
Son of Dathomir, no. Wait.
All right.
No, she's not. No, he does. Okay. He goes to Dathomir at some point. Yeah,
she goes. Well, I bought Spot. I've started reading it.
Oh, nice.
So, yeah, but yeah, I've already kind of seen what the idea is, what they're gonna do.
Yeah, it ties up a lot of loose ends, but it's a cool one. But yeah, what were we saying? So we were talking about the trial and Anakin losing it. I was going to say quick that Anakin almost lost it. Almost went to the dark side on some clone troopers when they had Ahsoka locked up, and they were like, "Can't let you in, sir." And he looked at them and looks up, and he's like, "Let me in." And then you see the clone trooper kind of step back and go and lift up his gun and be like, "You need to go." And you're thinking, the clone trooper's thinking, please don't let Anakin go nuts and kill us all, because he very easily could just wipe all of them out. And the clone trooper's like, please don't, Anakin. And he just holds himself back. But as Dave said, it's like, he just does, but at certain points he's like, no, fuck it. Like, force choke Asajj, hold a lightsaber to her throat and be like, I don't care if you die, just tell me. It's the only thing keeping you alive. And it's like, it shouldn't work. It shouldn't. In the confines of the story, it does work really well, but it shouldn't do, because you want Anakin to find the good. But all these things, these situations he keeps getting in, are just like, doing the bad stuff works. It gets what he wants.
Yeah, with the clone troopers, you sort of, you've got that awareness of the movies. You know, so in the movies where Vader's just choking the various people from the Empire. So you do, for a brief moment, you're sort of a bit worried for the clone troopers, and you can tell the voice actor does a great job, because he's trying to stand his ground, but he's sort of shitting himself as well.
It's almost breaking voice kind of.
Yeah.
Sorry, mister.
Yeah.
Well, D. Bradley Baker, he did all the voice for the Ponkrell arc, because it was all the clones, and he did Ponkrell. But sorry, Maff, you're going to say something?
Yeah, because I mean, I know the other two guards come with like their electric sticks, and I'm kind of thinking, nah, you. If there were temple guards, there's a chance.
Yeah,
I think they could probably hold their own against Anakin.
Probably.
But it's questionable whether they would beat him or not, because that's what they've trained to do their entire life.
I think he does technically kill a couple when Order 66 happens. You don't see it anywhere. But I believe the Grand Inquisitor actually killed most of them by like stabbing them in the back. So it would be interesting. I would love to see that, like a deleted scene of him fighting some temple guards. That'd be awesome. The
temple guards, are they force sensitive, or are they just?
Yes, they're Jedi that essentially they take an oath of like silence, pretty much, and they stand dead still like all day and go into like a deep meditative flow state. They're meant to be like almost unstoppable warriors, in a sense of where there's no attachments, there's no objects, there's not even an identity. They are just the guard, and all their focus on is sensing if the certain parts of the Jedi Temple, if there's good stuff going on, bad. That's kind of their point. But I think the Jedi use them less and less as the war goes on, because they need capable Jedi to go out and fight. Whereas there's a couple of Jedi that almost become temple guards as like self-punishment to kind of...
Do the temple guards turn into the Emperor, the red
Inquisitors
guards
and stuff? Oh,
no.
Oh, the Emperors. No, so the Emperor's Royal Guard, they are not force sensitive. They are like elite members of the Republican army, and then really the Empire army. It's really just like when you succeed at like certain things, you get to a point where you have the opportunity to become one of Palpatine's guards, and that requires like essentially being tortured for a long period of time to kind of brainwash you, to kind of force you to be a shell. So all you are is the Emperor's Royal Guard. Like, you don't really have a social life, you don't really do anything, you don't say anything, you are just a guard. And unfortunately, on screen and in the on animation in the films. It just seems like Yoda walks in a room and just wipes them out constantly. But actually, there's a comic of it's a Lando comic written by Charles Soule, and that actually has them fighting people, and they're actually really powerful fighters. Not dissimilar is the Praetorian Guards in The Last Jedi. When Rey and Kylo in the throne scene, probably the best scene in the film.
Do we not see them in Mando? Isn't there a scene in Mando with the
oh yes, it's Series 3, I think, or Series 2.
They kill.
He has some Praetorian Guards. Yeah, so there are Praetorian Guards. Yeah, yes, those are essentially, yeah, it was almost like leftover Royal Guards, and then there's also the Praetorian Guards, are kind of the new age of them. So it's kind of which ones they were there. But you are right. There's a very good memory. I'd forgotten completely about them. But that's my waffling.
Useless
about the guards.
Information.
But we've got your Maff. Do the Mace Windu stuff. Right. Read out what you wrote. Tell us what your thoughts on that, and then we'll pass it to Dave.
Because the thing is, Ahsoka's acquitted. It's very quickly wrapped up. You're guilty. Hang on a minute. Stop. Barriss did it. Oh, it's fine then. Off you go. Then there's a big scene where they're kind of in the Jedi Council area, and we see Master Bar. He's the one with the horns that come down a bit like a...
Oh, a Plo Koon, do you mean? Or
no.
There's Saesee Tiin as well.
Master Bar. He's in the Vader comics. He's with a group of outcasts.
Oh, okay, right.
And Vader comes... I think it's in Mon Calamari. He comes down and he hunts him, and he ends up kind of... He's missing one of the horns.
Yes, I know who you're on about. Yeah.
But there's him, Plo Koon, Obi-Wan. They all are kind of apologising, saying, we realised we were wrong, Ahsoka. We should have believed you. And then Mace goes, "This was actually your great trial. Now we see that we understand that the Force works in mysterious ways. And because of this trial, you've become a greater Jedi than you otherwise would have. In other words, I'm not sorry. Touch it. Never mind. Let's move on." Dickhead. Why can't you at this point realise that you fucked up and go, Ahsoka, she wasn't going to change her mind. She'd already made her mind up at this point. But it again shows that Mace Windu is just... If they're not up to his... If he doesn't believe they're as good as what he is, he just doesn't care. And it just shows again the fact that the Jedi are kind of like, "Oh, we're really sorry that we blamed you for this so quickly, but don't worry, because we've just flipped again, and now we're going to take you back, and it's all going to be fine." Well, it's like...
And you pass your trials, you'll be a Jedi now, Jedi Knight instead of just a Padawan.
Yeah, fuck you guys. I'm going. And it makes sense. It makes sense for whatever she chooses to do further down the line. It's heartbreaking, and it's heartbreaking afterwards when she does, she walks out.
We'll get to that in a sec. We'll get there because that's the first thing. I want to pass to Dave back about Mace Windu and more about the trial, but then we will get there because that's a big cornerstone. Anything you want to add, Dave, about Mace or the trial or anything else like that?
Yeah, I agree with what Maff's saying there, except for he says, "Oh, I'm sorry." There was no sorry. No sorry at all. It's just... Yeah, this was the way of the Force. Works in mysterious ways, doesn't it? Here was us thinking you were guilty. We were going to send you down for like 20 years.
Oh, no, it was execution. It was...
Oh, was it execution?
They were going to kill her right then and there.
Yeah. Oh, we laughed. And you sort of... it was a bit of a Scooby-Doo thing, wasn't it? When Anakin did come in with Bayless, it's like, yeah, it was me. And everyone's like, he's a bit of a wild card, Anakin. Could he have basically forced her, force choked her to threaten her to make sure she came? It was all wrapped up very, very quickly. But yeah, it was interesting, and you can't help but feel sorry for, you empathize with Ahsoka's character because it's everything she's believed in, but this has shaken her whole belief system. And she's like, well, if you can do this, I didn't think you were capable of this. And I told you all along I was innocent. Luckily, I escaped death. But yeah, I can't be part of this anymore. So yeah, Mace though, what a knob. I've said it for a while, but I thought in that moment he was his peak dickishness, wasn't he? You know, where he just couldn't even say, "Look, I'm really sorry. All the evidence pointed towards you." No, he gives us this force works in mysterious ways bullshit. So yeah, Mace is just a tool.
When Megan and I were watching this episode again, and Mace said that line, she just went, "Oh, Mace is such a dick, isn't he?"
Yeah.
And I was like, he is. I was like, he's like one of the most badass characters in Star Wars, but he's also just such an ass because he's so dogmatic.
The more you see him, the more you kind of dislike him.
100%. 100%.
Again, that is, we've said it so many times, that is the Jedi's downfall. The fact that they think they're better than anyone else.
Especially Mace.
Yeah, especially Mace. The thing is, but at the same point, I know in the films he shows that he's a bit of a badass fighter, but what has he actually done?
Well, this is it. Is that he does do in the Clone Wars? He does do quite a bit to a degree, but he is quite, as the Clone Wars go on, he's a lot more political, which is what this kind of shows. Is like, we wouldn't do this. Like I think we spoke about it in the prior arc in the Mandalore stuff. It was like, oh, well, Mandalore are neutral; they're not helping us, so leave them. And it's like, you're meant to be Jedi. The whole point is you help the helpless. These are helpless people because your government has failed.
Tarkin actually says that. There's a bit where I think in the second episode when Tarkin appears and I think Anakin challenges him for something and says, "Oh yeah, because you're peacekeepers, aren't you?" And then just keeps walking on, and it's like he's right. You're meant to be peacekeepers, but
that's a point I want to get to. Actually, I do want to. Unfortunately, Maff, I have to correct you on something, I'm afraid.
Okay.
The person you spoke about, Ferren Barr, he is an Iktochi. He is the same species, but Ferren Barr, the one from the Darth Vader comics, he only appears in the Vader comics. That's his first appearance. So he wasn't a Jedi Master. He was just like a kind of a Padawan, and then he escapes Order 66 and then hides in Mon Cala. The gentleman we saw, same species, Iktochi, but they are actually a Saesee teen. They are actually the person who gets killed by Palpatine in the throne room in Revenge of the Sith. You've got the four of them, and you've got Mace is one of them, Kit Fisto, Saesee Teen, and then it's not Eth Koth, it's another one, but it was meant to kind of be, and I always forget their name, so I'm sorry, I don't like doing it. But I do want to say, before we get on to the final thing with the conversation with Anakin and Ahsoka, I want to say, with Barriss, so her reasoning here I think is quite important, because my note here is that there's two things. Is first, Palpatine, the most he's in these 4 episodes is he speaks out against Ahsoka. The only thing he really says is when Padme does quite a good way of defending Ahsoka, Palpatine just comes in and says like 4 sentences and everyone just immediately turns on Ahsoka. So I think that's almost the thing. The galaxy's kind of doing this because obviously, Palpatine's pulling the strings. But then when it gets really close, you always notice he tilts it. Like there was the Padme arc a little while ago, and it was about, I think it was about like a political prisoner or something like that, and she was forcing Palpatine. She was like, something isn't right here. And then right at the last second, he flips and goes, "You're right, let's execute them." And she's like, "What? No." And he wins again. And he does that a lot, and I think this shows that. But with Barriss's reasoning, she says, the Jedi are no longer helping who they should. They've lost their way. They're serving some darkness. They're making the galaxy worse. They're no longer doing what the whole code is about. They're no longer actually doing the thing they preach. The whole public is losing faith in the Jedi because they are showing that they are not practicing what they're teaching. All these issues. And her reasoning is correct. Like, there's another thing in a future piece of media which we will tackle, and there's something that a certain character says, and you're like, God, you're right. And it's really succinctly explains kind of the downfall of the Jedi in some respects. But don't look it up or anything, because we'll get there at some point. But I want to ask, I want to say, so that was my thoughts on the Barriss stuff. Shall we get on to the Ahsoka Anakin stuff? Because we keep teasing that, unless there's anything else you want to mention about the trial.
Let's do it.
Yeah.
Okay. So we've got the thing where, Ahsoka leaves the trial, she says basically bye, and everyone runs out, and then Anakin runs after her. They talk outside the trial, and again, the cinematography is brilliant, very emotional, the music's excellent.
Star Wars music.
Yeah. And there's one line that I really like specifically. She says about how if no one could trust her, how could she trust herself? That's interesting, but a specific line. And it really, for me, this is why this arc is the most important in a lot of the whole of the prequels, because this moment, as Maff kind of alluded to, is, I think, the real thing that's missing from Revenge of the Sith is this moment where Anakin goes after her and he says, "Believe me, I understand more than anyone of wanting to walk away from the Order." And Ahsoka says, "I know you do." And so she knows how close he is to the edge of leaving. And I think a lot of the reason he doesn't leave is just because of Palpatine. I think Palpatine is almost one of the things where whenever Anakin's mad, Palpatine fuels the flames in every conversation, and he does in Revenge of the Sith. But he also, with every flame he's making, says, "No, but you need to stay with the Jedi. They're the best for the galaxy. You're so good for them. You're better than the Jedi. You can't leave the Jedi Order. Don't even think about it. Never do that." But they are horrible. They are not treating you right. There is something wrong about them. But don't leave them. And that's how Palpatine never gets detected by anyone, because Anakin's not like, "Palpatine's has been saying you guys are dicks," because he never says that. He asks questions that Anakin answers in his own mind. And this thing really is the nail in the coffin of like, if Ahsoka leaves because of the Jedi Order, Anakin did everything he could, and he was right, and he still lost her. So with Padme, he's even more doubling down. He lost his mother. Then with Ahsoka, he still did everything right. In the confines of the Order, he still did everything they told him to, and things he told him not to do, and he still was correct. But Ahsoka still leaves because the Jedi are that bad. And so this whole interaction, it's just chef's kiss for me. So Dave, what did you think about this kind of stuff? And then we'll go to Maff as we start to wrap.
Yeah, I thought it was a bit on the nose where she was saying that, I know. She's sort of like, no, just about the Anakin stuff. I do think it was a great scene, the way it was shot and everything. I thought it was fantastic. And again, it's like we've said all the way going back to the Clone Wars movie, we've said to Maff, okay, you got to get through this, but honestly, it will make the movies better. Like when you get back to the movies, it will make so much more sense than what played out in the movies. And I think this really goes to that. Because again, we've seen Ahsoka grow up, but we've also seen Anakin as a mentor grow up as well. And like you said, he's had his whole belief shaken to the core. And, also, he's not just lost his Padawan, but he's seen someone else now who is taking that decision. So no, I don't. You've got Baelish who's trying to blow up things to expose the Jedi. You've got Ahsoka walking away from the Jedi. Anakin's just left with fewer and fewer reasons to believe in the Jedi. So yeah, it was a fantastic interaction, I have to say.
And so, Maff, what do you think? Because obviously, as Dave said, this is what we keep saying. Things will get answered. This isn't the last we see of Ahsoka, but this is a real big thing. So
I think it's interesting because, again, kind of at first I was thinking a lot of this, Palpatine must be behind it. But I think what you've said, that no, she was acting on her own with Barriss, it then makes you realise the fact that, yeah, Anakin has just seen, like Dave says, Barriss has kind of, exposed the Jedi for what they really are, fucking useless. And that. And then Ahsoka's, being given that option to come back to her family, to come back to what she knows and what she's trained her entire life for. You can't walk away from this. And she's like, no, I can't, because you guys are. It's not just the fact that they didn't believe, because Anakin did believe in her, and he did try everything that he could. But the rest of the Order, so Ahsoka's seen that they're not what she's been learning, what she's been taught. They're not. That's not true. So she can't be part of that. And the fact that she's now got an opportunity to walk away, there's that element of Anakin's like, I wish it was so simple for me to kind of do, but I can't. So that's why I said earlier on, I'm actually quite worried and interested to see what season 6 is, and also season 7, because not having that grounding rod, I kind of wonder whether we're going to start seeing a bit more of the darker side of Anakin. I mean, obviously, I don't think we're going to see young ones getting killed just yet,
No.
but I do question whether they may show him tapping into, because other than Obi-Wan, who's there to kind of question him? And that you could argue Rex might do, but again, Rex,
he follows a lot more.
Yeah.
He went after Ahsoka in this episode. He is a Republic trooper, through and through.
Yeah, I have seen a picture of something, but I don't know. There is a clone troop.
I'll do my poker face, but I'm not. I'm just warning you. No matter what you say.
I've seen a picture of a clone trooper, and they had an orange helmet with certain markings, and I thought, oh, that's interesting. So then I kind of thinking, it looked a lot like Ahsoka's kind. Look at face. It looked like Ahsoka's kind of markings on the helmet. So obviously, I do know Ahsoka's going to be in later. I'm assuming that. I was thinking maybe that could be Rex, but I'll have to wait and see. Obviously,
you will. I will say, is there anything I want to talk a little bit about the next seasons? I won't spoil anything, but we will start to wrap up. Is there anything else? Like, obviously, this arc was incredible, absolute top tier must watch. I would prefer if Disney Plus, they don't want you to do this because they want you to watch it all. But I've said before, I can't be bothered to do it myself. I want them to basically release almost like the essential Clone Wars collection and almost just release like 3 DVD box sets, something, or Blu-rays, whatever, or even just on Disney Plus. And it just says like, they did it a little bit, but they didn't really advertise it much. It was like the Maul collection. Here's the 10 episodes you have to watch to see what happened between Maul, between Phantom Menace and Solo. The Essential Ahsoka collection, because there's a lot of episodes we've discussed over this where, because again, Ahsoka's not really in it very much anymore. Her whole arc is leading up to this point, and there's quite a few cool little episodes about her, but things, I know you like Lightsaber Lost, but that's not like a crucial, you need to watch Ahsoka episode. The Youngling episode I enjoy, it's cool. It's not an Essential Ahsoka episode at all. There's lots of episodes she's in.
Don't push the story on.
Exactly. I think you could probably, quite easily actually, I think you could easily probably put like 15, 20 episodes together.
You could finish it with having Rebels this episode, because that kind of match, when you see all this, obviously I don't know what's going to come next. Yeah, so there's going to be some more interaction with Ahsoka and Anakin further down the line, but again, watching this and watching Ahsoka walk away, this scene where Ahsoka goes up against Vader, and she kind of, when Vader says, I killed Anakin, he won't let Anakin, and she's like, well, I'm going to avenge my master. But also that point where she says, I'm not a Jedi. And it makes sense now why she's not a Jedi. Yeah.
Well, that's it. It's amazing.
It's powerful stuff.
That's why and again, I'm glad you rewatched it, because that's why I just think although I made you watch Rebels first, I think, Rebels probably, it would have been better if you hadn't seen Clone Wars first, but the thing is that Rebels is just so consistent and is so phenomenal, and again, with the Ahsoka series, it worked out really well, but there are some episodes of Clone Wars which are phenomenal. But I just want to, I want to wrap up, and I want to just talk a little bit about what we're coming up next. Now, I've been very cagey with Maff about things that are coming up. This is the most I'm going to give you, because unfortunately, Season 6 is, I'd argue, maybe the most uneven season there is. It's really weird, and there's only 13 episodes, but I've racked my brain about this. I cannot do it in less than 4 episodes with you guys, because the way the episodes are split is so weird. So we don't have to do plugs or anything because we've done that. So we've got the first 4 episodes as an arc, and the first 4 episodes are amazing. Very important arc. Again, lots of questions will be answered. Very, very interesting arc that I'm very excited about. That's the first 4. That's the next things we'll be doing. So season 6, episodes 1, 2, 3, 4. Really excited about that. Then we've got a 3-parter, a 2-parter, a one-off episode, and then a finale that's a 3-parter, which is really irritating and makes it really difficult. So what I'm suggesting is we do the first 4, then we do 5, 6, 7, which is a 3-parter, but it's its own story. Then we do the 2-parter with the one-off. The one-off is amazing. The 2-parter, and this is the only thing I'm going to spoil, is it's Jar Jar Binks and Mace Windu, just the 2 of them, for 2 episodes.
Fucking hell.
And it is not good. It's not horrendous, but it's not good. So we'll do those, and then we'll be able to do a really cool episode after that. And then the last 3 episodes are rated very highly. I love them. I recall Dave not liking them very much because they're quite forcey and quite weird. So season 6, unfortunately, is a very, very mixed bag. It's the middle of it is just a bit janky, but I'm excited to go there. And then Season 7's got some very important episodes, which we will eventually get to. But yeah, the next season, unfortunately, Maff, don't expect the quality of this. I would say this is the absolute peak. There's one other bit, but this is really the peak.
Done this season, it kind of got cancelled halfway before the end, didn't it?
100%.
I mean, it
so
probably doesn't
six
excuse the fact that the first 13 are, you're saying the first 13 are brilliant.
There are a couple which are phenomenal. There's one arc in this. It's one of my favorite. The two of the arcs in this are actually my favorite. Probably the first and end arc are two of my favorite arcs in Star Wars. It's just all those middle ones. There's just two arcs don't really work that well. But we'll get there. But yeah, this season is called the Lost Season in air quotes, because it got stopped halfway through. It just stops. It doesn't conclude the Clone Wars. You have no idea where the timeline is when it stops. It just stops. But we'll get there. But yeah, it's been great chatting about this. I'm excited to get into season 6 because there's going to be a lot of conversations, even though the episodes aren't necessarily that amazing. This has been a great episode, but we've been gushing quite a lot. The next ones are going to start some more conversations going, especially in the next 4. So very excited about that. So listeners, tune in for season 6, episodes 1, 2, 3, and 4, starting with the unknown, finishing with orders. And the only hint you get there, Maff, is it's about clones. So very excited about that. I know Dave's going to be happy. But yeah, is there anything else you guys want to add before I say those magic words?
No, I will probably just say I can't wait for the next 4. And again, it's challenging my perception that seasons 5, 6, and 7 are just amazing. I just feel like that's what my gut says, but as we've gone through this season, then that's challenged that. So again, I'm looking forward to just stopping after the 4, having a chat about it, and then we'll get on to the other stuff.
It's going to be good. There's a lot of arcs that are very interesting in season 6. Season 6 is very uneven, but that's again why I prefer Rebels, because Rebels just gets better and better and better and better, apart from the finale season 2 that's leaps and bounds above. Clone Wars is not, even season 7 isn't the best season. I think season 5 is, but season 5 has the droids in it, so I'm just, don't know. Anything last from you, Maff?
It's quite interesting because obviously, I haven't finished yet, but there is guff throughout these first few seasons, but then you get nuggets like what we've just watched, and the 4 episodes that we saw before as well with the more stuff. Because they're so good, even thinking back, I mean, obviously you got the Krell and the
Geonosis arc.
Yeah, but even I'm thinking back to the one where the one with the worms with Luke's Heavy.
Yeah.
That still sticks in my mind, and that one from season 1 or 2. 1.
Yeah.
So
episode 5.
There is a lot of guff in here, and like you say, maybe if they could kind of say, that episode don't work. Sorry, Lucas, for taking the droids out. If they condense this and made it into maybe a 3 or 4 season arc and just give us the best ones, it would be amazing. But you kind of excuse the crap ones.
We do, because I hooked you with Rebels, but that's the problem. Season 1 just isn't good enough, and season 2 is also not quite good enough in certain respects. But
and maybe it's one of them things that they had to try something and see if it worked, and it's like England. They tried something, it didn't work, and that. But at least they tried to do something. The thing is, this part with Ahsoka may not have worked. They may have kind of done it, and people might have gone, yeah.
People didn't like Ahsoka to begin with, and I think the thing is the issue of things like Acolyte. It's not perfect, but no streaming service are giving things a chance. This show and the US office, season 1 of both are not that good, but because of random conditions and really surprise and a lot of luck, they managed to make more seasons. And they changed things up. They made things better. Season 2 leaps and bounds above, and from there that happened. Same with Parks and Rec. So I think it's just this is a real show that really Disney need to be patient and allow for things like Acolyte that may not have worked in some respects to get better. And then we can have better storyline and things. But we'll have to see. But I'm excited about the next ones. The more Clone Wars. Again, it's not bad, Maff. It is good. There's just a couple of dips. But thank you both so much for joining me on this journey. I'm so glad we're having fun breaking these episodes up. And we're getting near the finish line. Getting near the finish line now. There's only 25 or 26 odd episodes left, so it's going to be fun. But friends, thank you so much for tuning in. As always, subscribe to Comics in Motion, Star Wars Comics in Canon, Genuine Chit Chat, all those places, VHS Strikes Back, everything we're all doing, all the stuff in the show notes, etc., etc. We appreciate you tuning in, as always, and of course, may the Force be with you.
Always.